name is Stressball, and today I'm going to teach you how to make a harpoon that goes on and off. So it turns on, then you can get fired at, and it turns off, then you can't get fired at. That's basically the mechanism that we're going to use. So I'll show you what I set up here. We got a floor over here, and then we got this thing where you can pass through. So the first thing we are going to do is place down a harpoon. I already set up some stuff, but I'll walk you guys through it anyway. So we have a harpoon, it has an anchor. I don't know how to pronounce it, I'm just gonna say anchor. We're gonna turn it off so that it, look at the difference, because if we turn it on, we have this weird rope thing over there, and if we turn it off, it's just gonna fire. So I would like to have that. You can choose whatever you want. We're gonna have a fixed turret, and I'm gonna point it down. We have trigger firing. So this is my harpoon over here. It's not gonna fire unless I tell it to fire itself, so triggered. So what we need is a trigger that says fire the harpoon. Well, we're gonna place that trigger right here, going along with the angle of the harpoon. I think the angle's a bit too sharp, so I'm gonna place down the trigger and reset the harpoon angle. So there we go, and a trigger over here. We're gonna add the harpoon and select fire harpoon whenever the trigger is triggered. Now we're gonna make the trigger start disabled. What that does is it's not working because it started disabled, and if I set start disabled to unchecked, then it's gonna fire. So that's what start disabled does. If I click start disabled, the trigger's not working, so the harpoon's not firing. So the whole mechanism, harpoon firing, harpoon not firing, is whether disabled is on or off. So what's going to happen soon is this. It's going to move from on to off. Okay, so how are we going to do that? We need two other triggers. One trigger over here that triggers the other trigger, and then we got the second trigger we need that also triggers the trigger. I hope that's understandable. So what we want trigger 2 to do is to set it to enable, and trigger 3 should be set to disable. So that way we can have that on-off effect. Okay, what we want to do now is activate trigger 2, then activate trigger 3, and then activate 2, and then 3. So we want that repetition in there. So we're gonna set repeat type to 2, so it can repeat. Okay, place down a circle, make sure it's not fixed. Interactive, but not fixed. Then place down a rectangle shape, also make sure it's not fixed. Just click fixed, and then it's only interactive. Okay, next thing you want to do is grab those two and group them. So now you have a group, it acts like a group as you can see. Okay, we're gonna place it in between the triggers, make sure there's enough space for both of them. And what we want to do is we want the stick to be able to touch the triggers. So this one over here. Okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna select the joint tool and place down a pin joint and give it a nice motor speed and a bit slower. So motor speed 1, motor speed 2 will do, I think. Okay, I'll move this whole system down here so that you can see what's going on. Okay, a very important thing we must do before we can test this and show that it actually works is select both of the triggers, add new target, and then make sure to add this item we created over here. Do not attach the joint tool, we don't want to attach that, attach the item. So make sure that your mouse is actually above the item and then click. We're going to select both of the triggers. So trigger 2, click, hold shift and click trigger 3 as well. And we're going to slide this to triggered by 4 only targets attached to this trigger, which in this case is our custom item. Okay, now as you can see we activated this joint tool, so it's going to rotate. And then because of the rotation the stick will select trigger 2. Then we'll select trigger 3, and then 2, and then 3. So trigger 1 is going to be disabled, enabled, because enable and disable are set as trigger actions. I forgot a very important thing. The item is not triggering the triggers, because the joint tool is not set to collide connected. Last time I explained this as well, but I couldn't really explain it. We got a very nice comment from Wings and Strings over here explaining why you need collide connected. Basically, if you use a trigger, it's going to pin this item to the wall, to the background of the level, so it's not interacting with anything. With collide connected, we can make sure that it actually does interact with things in the level again. Anyway, now that we have everything set up, collide connected, low motor speed, group items, 2 triggers, and then this one on and off, we should be able to pull this off. So whenever the group item leaves trigger 2, which is at the start of the level, as you can see, it just touched it, the harpoon should be able to fire at me. Whenever the item leaves trigger 3, so the time when it goes like this, it should not be able to fire. So let's test that. It just touched trigger 2, so it fires me. Let's wait, touch, and now we can go through. And as you can see, it's not gonna fire. So now it should be able And it's working. Very nice. Next thing we wanted to do is make a red indication, because currently the player has no clue when the harpoon is going to fire, because of course this is going to move out of the way. Let's do that right now. Now you can't see it, so you have no clue when the trigger is firing. So it's basically just guessing. So what we're gonna do is we'll grab this rectangle shape, we'll move it in the direction of the harpoon. Click interactive so that it's not interactive anymore. Okay, we're gonna place this down. I suggest placing it down next to the trigger first, so you can move it to the background by pushing Control down. And then we want both of the triggers to be connected to our red item, our red rectangle. Now what's going to happen? Of course, when trigger 2 is activated, it's going to enable the harpoon. So whenever trigger 2 is working, we want to make the player aware of the fact that it can fire them. So, for this action, trigger 2 should be changing the opacity to 100 and duration 0. What does that mean? It means that it's visible. Trigger 3, however, is disabling the harpoon. So, the harpoon is not going to fire if trigger 3 is working. So, trigger 3 should be set to change opacity to 0. Okay, let's look if this is working. Like so. So now it can't fire and now it can fire. Okay, what we want to do now is move it in front of the harpoon, actually behind it, but you get the point. Click away and then test the level, and as you can see, we now have our harpoon which is firing on and off. Let's test if it works. There we go, very nice. This was my tutorial on how to make an on-off harpoon. If you like this tutorial, then please leave a like, and I hope to see you next time.